Are you a small business owner or entrepreneur who believes that you're working too much and want part of your time back? If you answered yes, you're not alone, and this conversation today is just up your alley and something you need to hear. But first, I wanted to give you some statistical data to buttress what I'm about to talk about. According to the Alternative Board and the U.S. Small Business Administration, 80% of today's entrepreneurs in the United States work more than 40 hours a week at a clip of 84%. And over 75% of small business owners want better work-life balance. It's estimated that roughly 79% of U.S. small business owners today say they work too much and that they wish they could manage their workload significantly better. One man who can certainly relate to that plight is my friend, Jerry Potter. He helps entrepreneurs, small business owners, and organizational leaders run their business in half the time so that they have time to go out to lunch. He says for years he was lying to his clients without realizing it. For years they would ask him how he got so much done, and proudly he would regurgitate time management tricks. But that wasn't the secret at all. By 2023, everything came into focus. He had a simple realization that changed everything and allowed him to make more, work less, and be done running his business by lunch. And now he helps other online entrepreneurs run their business in half the time, giving them the permission structure to move on to other things that provide them with joy and purpose in their life. So I ask you, what's the key to true time freedom? If you're interested to find out the answer to that very question, we're about to find out, because my conversation with Potter starts right now. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Take a moment to welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to learn how you help business owners optimize the effectiveness of YouTube. Great to see you this afternoon, and happy Tuesday to you, my friend.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to share this stuff. I think that not enough businesses are taking YouTube as a platform where they should be investing their time, and so I love to help people kind of see a different way to look at it.
Absolutely. So let's start right there, my friend. Let's talk about YouTube and why you believe business owners of all shapes and sizes should be on the platform in order to optimize their business, my friend. What are your thoughts there?
Well, initially, 10 years ago now, probably everyone decided, if you're a business, you have to be on social media, right? You have to be putting content out somewhere. And I think that the thing that a lot of people don't realize with YouTube, because it's more work to get started, let's be transparent. It's not like, I can just type a post on Facebook or LinkedIn. You got to make a video, usually edit it, put it up, all of that kind of stuff. And what people don't realize, though, is that on all of these platforms, all of the other social platforms, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, they're very hungry. Like you put up a video, you put up an Instagram reel and you'll get views for a couple of days and then it goes away. And on YouTube, you put up a video and it gets views, and then you put up another video and it gets views, but the first video still keeps getting views. And then when you get to your 10th video, that gets views, plus the older ones are still getting views. And just to kind of put this into context, I didn't realize this till I got on YouTube, but my first year on YouTube, which was a partial year, it was about 4.5 months, I got about 1,000 views total after publishing for 4.5 months. But then the next year, I got 300,000 views. And the year after that, I got, I think, about 1.2 million. And the year after that, it was almost 2 million views. So when you are investing your time into YouTube, you're not just putting up a video for this week. You're building this evergreen library of content that people can just keep coming back to over and over again. So it just has this really high return on effort for your time as a business owner.
Yeah, absolutely. And, through this podcast area, I've now published over 1,300 videos on YouTube. And I'm curious to ask you about the importance of consistency and sort of the consistency of message on YouTube, and how important it is to be consistent, my friend, in order to gain visibility. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, congrats on all your episodes. That's amazing. So consistency kind of goes through two phases. In the beginning, consistency is really important because for a couple of reasons. One, so you can get better at it, right? Like someday you'll look back and you go, oh, the first video I ever made is the worst video I ever made. But more than that, YouTube is trying to learn what a channel is about. They're trying to understand who the videos are for so it can match them up with the perfect viewer. So there's no conspiracy at YouTube to prevent new channels or small channels from getting in front of viewers, because what YouTube wants more than anything else is to show videos to the people that will like them. So it doesn't matter how small the channel is. And so in the beginning, YouTube is trying to learn who your channel is for. And if you only publish once every month or two, that takes a lot longer for YouTube to figure out. But if you publish weekly, and I like to do just one long form video weekly, no shorts. If you publish weekly, then YouTube starts to learn, okay, now I know who this channel is for, and it'll start to push out your videos. Assuming people like them and they're watching them, it'll start to push out the videos to more people like that. Now, as time goes on, quality tends to become more important than consistency once you kind of figure out your audience. And so there are channels now that only publish once a month, but they might put 4 times as much work into making that one video really good instead of just slapping something up every week.
Yeah, absolutely. Jerry, you say you were lying to your customers for a long time, and you realized something in 2023 that really changed the trajectory of your trajectory on the platform, and you help other business owners realize that same lesson. So I'm wondering if you could share it with me this afternoon.
Sure. Yeah. So for a lot of years, I've always been sort of an efficiency geek. Like I always want to make the most of my time. I'm one of those people that will get my phone out while I'm in the checkout line to reply to an email if there's a line is long enough for me to do that. So I like to make the best of my time. And for years, I had clients saying, how do you get so much done? And I would be happy to answer their question. And I would tell them, well, here's how I arrange my calendar, and here's how I batch record my content. And they were all these time management hacks. And time management hacks are fine. They can improve and help you get more done, but they really only save you minutes, or in some cases, maybe 30 minutes or an hour a week. So what I realized a few years back was the reason I was able to run my business so efficiently wasn't because of how I batch recorded YouTube videos. It was because I was using things that I call high leverage assets, or HLAs for short. So a high leverage asset is basically something you build in your business that not only serves you now, but serves you next week and next month and next year. It's something that you can easily scale, so it's not reliant on you all the time. And so I'll give you a few examples here. YouTube is my favorite example of this. As I talked about before, when I put out a YouTube video this week, it's not just getting me views this week, it's getting me views next week, next month, and next year. So it goes on to continue to get views, continue to invite new people into my world, and continue to get people to join my email list and, invest in my business. So that's a great way for getting traffic. Podcasts can be good for that too, right? Like your older episodes probably still get views and downloads. Is that accurate for you, Kevin?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So podcasts are another great high leverage asset. But then we can also do that in other parts of business, like the conversion part, how we turn somebody from being somebody in our audience to being an actual client or customer. And so if you have automated email sequences or evergreen webinars, they can help somebody find you and become a client or customer in the same day without you being involved. The opposite is if you have to get on a sales call every time you close a customer, well, that's not scalable, right? That's low leverage. And then the same thing on the back end, the third part of our business, we have traffic, we have conversion, and then delivery. That is where we are going to deliver whatever it is we're offering. And if everything you're doing is one-on-one, well, you can't scale that. But when you have group programs or memberships or courses or masterminds or different things like that, then again, it's more efficient because you can scale it, because you can serve 50 clients in the same amount of time that it would normally take you to serve one client. So that's the real key to time freedom is that I found is just changing the way you think about your business. It's not time management hacks. It's high leverage assets.
Yeah, absolutely. So time freedom and time management are two totally different things. A lot of people have great ideas, but they don't know how to implement the systems in order to get that done. And I'm wondering if you could talk about, the time, freedom versus, having a systematic approach to get that done, because a lot of people start a small business because they want to be their own boss and set their own schedule, as you just said. But I'm wondering your thoughts on the difference between, effective time management versus time freedom and how they're sort of interconnected and freeing up more time so you can have more time for the things that you enjoy. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, well, so the reason I was lying to my clients for so many years is because I just kept giving them these time management hacks instead of realizing the way I was accidentally building my business in the beginning was this key to time freedom. And so there's a couple of factors at play. One of them is just being very intentional about what you decide to sell. Now, you don't always start off that way, right? You often will start off serving one customer because that's the sale you can make. You can't start a 50-person group program if you have no audience. But over time, you can build toward that. Now, YouTube is the exception. I think every online entrepreneur should be starting a YouTube channel. And my main program is helping them do it in 90 minutes a week so that you can start building it as a side hustle so that by the time it kicks in, you'll get to benefit from that. But the other part of this is, you mentioned we get into entrepreneurship because we want to be our own boss. And most of us really suck at being our own boss because we're too easy on ourselves in some cases, right? I'm tired. I don't want to do that today. Or, I've got kids. So it's like, oh, I got to help with math homework. I can't do this. I can't do that. And so one of the things that I have done, and anybody can apply this, is think about Parkinson's law. And for anyone who's not familiar, Parkinson's law is the idea that the amount of time a task will take will fill the amount of time that you give it. So if you say this task is going to take an hour, I've got an hour to do it, it's going to take you an hour. If you say it's going to take 30 minutes, the same task will probably get done in 30 minutes. And if you say it's going to take 10 days, it's probably going to take 10 days. So one thing I encourage people to do if they want more time freedom is literally start limiting how much time they give themselves to complete a task. Now, as I said earlier, we're really bad at managing ourselves because we're us, right? Like I'm me. I can just tell myself no anytime I want. But if you build it in a way where you have sort of a natural boundary, then this is feasible. So my business is called Done by Lunch. And the whole idea is to, have the time freedom where you can run your whole business and be done by lunch, run it in 20 to 25 hours a week. And what I found as I was developing this is it's really hard to be done by 2 p.m., done by 2:30, because it's such a fluid. I mean, it's an exact time, but it's fluid, right? Like, oh, I'll just go 15 more minutes. And next thing you know, it's 5 o'clock. But if you build it in a way where it's like, I'll be done by lunch. In other words, I don't get to eat until I'm done for the day. Well, that's a little bit more motivating. Or done by the time kids are out of school, when I have to pick up the kids, that works better. So if you give yourself a hard time, I bet anyone listening who's spending, let's say 60 hours a week running their business right now, you could probably find a way to run it in 55 hours a week and get the same amount of stuff done. Or if you're running it 40 hours a week, you could probably run it in 35 hours a week and still get everything done.
Yeah, and Jerry, I'm I'm curious to ask you, how you avoid YouTube saturation as a business owner or a content creator, because there are millions of people on YouTube looking for the same amount of attention and the same
Yeah.
amount of time to consume videos. So tell me, how do you think business owners, entrepreneurs, and content creators can avoid being saturated and maximize their YouTube influence? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
So let me just to clarify, you're asking how do you stand out when things are already so crowded?
That's essentially the question, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So first, let me say I started my channel in 2017, and in 2017, everyone said it's too late to start on YouTube. And I was like, I don't know, I'm going to do it anyway, right? And people are still saying it now. And so there's a couple of things to know about this. First of all, YouTube is giving smaller channels a better chance than they ever have. Over the last year, basically YouTube's algorithm, where it decides what videos to show where, has gotten much smarter with AI. So it used to be if you put up a video, you did have to publish for a while in most cases before YouTube was going to give any of your videos a chance, because they wanted to know that you were serious about it. They wanted to make sure you weren't just putting up, scammy content or anything like that. But now the algorithm is so smart, it can see not only what your video is called and what's in the description, it can see what it looks like, what you talk about, the emotion, the tone, like it knows everything about the videos. So they'll recommend them faster than they used to, which is amazing. So how do you stand out? A lot of people come into YouTube and the clients that I work with, they're like, there's already 1 million people doing this. Like, how am I going to stand out? And there's two parts. One, you have to remind yourself that you don't have to be number one to be the best at what you do or to be wildly successful. So for example, I help entrepreneurs grow a lead generating YouTube channel, right? How many people are teaching how to grow on YouTube? Thousands, hundreds of thousands probably, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the first thing, is just a mindset shift, is you don't have to be the number one channel, especially if you're an entrepreneur, because you're not making your money from views. If you're a content creator, then maybe that's the goal. You're making your money from leads and the things you sell. The second part, though, is what I say we always need to start the channel with a unique premise, something that helps it stand out from everything else out there, because we're not going to pretend there's no competition. And I'll say, if you just go on there and you say what everybody else is saying, you're not going to stand out. If you're just rehashing what ChatGPT gave you, you're not going to stand out. So you need to have your own opinions, your own stories, things that help you stand out. So for me, my channel is how to grow a lead generating YouTube channel in 90 minutes a week. So nobody else is doing that. Nobody else is telling people how they can do it in this concise period of time, so they can start now instead of waiting until they miraculously have enough time in the future, which is what we all believe, right? And so that's my unique premise. And when I came up with that idea, originally it was like 3 hours a week, and my friends were like, nah, that's too long, 2 hours a week. And when I said 90 minutes, a few friends were like, oh, if you can show me how to do that, I'd be interested. And when I started telling people about it, even if they're not interested, if I tell somebody, yeah, I help people grow a YouTube channel in 90 minutes a week so they can get started now instead of waiting, I've had people say, oh gosh, I don't want to be on YouTube, but I have a friend that does. How do I find your channel? And so when you come up with that unique premise, not only will you stand out, but the viewers you do get will tell other people about that exact thing. They'll say, hey, you got to check out this channel. They show how to do it in 90 minutes a week, as opposed to all the creator channels that are teaching creators how to do it in 25 hours a week or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jerry, let's dive a little bit deeper into your framework and how you help entrepreneurs and you guide them to grow a YouTube channel 90 hours a week, my friend, or 90 minutes a week. What's the secret to doing that, my friend?
So there's a few key pieces. And the first thing that we really think about with this is we want to turn YouTube into a place where we only do what I call the tasks with the highest ROE, or return on effort. So a lot of people talk about ROI, return on investment, but in this case, we're talking about effort, we're talking about your time. There's not really money that has to be spent. So I call it ROE. And so the first thing is we're not going to do all the things on YouTube. So YouTube has long form videos, right? The ones that have been there forever, kind of like this podcast episode, I imagine. They have shorts, they have podcasts, they have live streams, they have community posts. Now they have communities where other people can post in your community on your channel. There's memberships. There's so many different things.
And if you try and do collaborations now, right? Too, right?
What's that?
There's collaborations too, right?
Yeah. There's so many features and new ones coming out all the time, which I love how innovative YouTube is. But if you're an entrepreneur, you've only got 90 minutes a week, we're going to do one long form video per week, and that's it. And by long form, it could be 5 to 7 minutes, 7 to 10 minutes. If you're good at video and you like video, you could start making longer ones. But that's all it takes to start building that evergreen library of content. Shorts don't live on like long form videos do. Live streams don't live on. All of those other features don't live on the way that a long form video does. And so that's why we focus on that, widescreen long form video.
Yeah.
The second part.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say the second part is we do have to choose again what we're going to do with our videos. So one of them is we have to let go of perfection. First of all, perfection doesn't exist. But second, perfection is not necessary for YouTube success. So I love to share that YouTube did this big study a couple of years ago, and they wanted to figure out what makes a viewer really satisfied when they watch a video. Viewer satisfaction, as they called it. And they didn't just ask people, hey, what'd you like about that video? Because as humans, as flawed humans, sometimes we say things that aren't necessarily true. We say that what we think the other person wants to hear, or we're worried about what they're going to think of us depending on our answer. So they actually connected like sensors to people's brains and monitored their brain activity while they were watching YouTube videos to figure out what triggered it. And one of the things they found was the thing that triggered viewer satisfaction more than anything else was not flashy graphics, fancy editing, celebrities, like none of that stuff. The thing that was more important than anything else was an emotional connection with the person in the video or the topic in the video. So if they have that emotional connection, which could be them laughing, it could be them concerned, it could be them feeling like you understand their struggles, any emotion is fine. So we focus on creating not full scripts, but outlines that take people through that in a way that they're going to connect with it. So we don't spend time on fancy editing. We don't spend a lot of time on lots of B-roll footage or anything like that. We focus on what we're going to say in the video because that has that highest ROE possible from the viewers. And if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to be making videos about the problems that your audience has. And so the emotion's kind of already built in, right? So that's the great thing about it. So those are kind of the two of the main things is we are only focusing on long form videos and we are letting go of perfectionism and we're putting most of our effort into what we say in the actual video. That's where we have the highest return on effort.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the highest return on revenue. A lot of people start YouTube channels, as you said, as a side hustle to get additional revenue. So what do you think is the recipe or secret to maximizing revenue on YouTube?
So there's kind of two paths when you start on YouTube, and I call one of them sort of the creator or influencer path, and the other one is the entrepreneur or business owner path. So the creator influencer path is where essentially you're going to make money by selling other people's offers. So that could be because you got into the YouTube Partner Program and they run ads on your video and they share some of the ad revenue with you. It could be sponsorships, it could be affiliates, but you're going to make money by selling other people's offers. And that's a hard uphill road because you won't be able to do that until you have a decent sized audience, okay? Now, on the other path, the entrepreneur or business owner path, you literally, like if you already have an offer in your business, you literally need one viewer. That's it. I have a client who's a doctor and she started a new channel and, she was putting out videos every week, just like we teach. And she was getting, a handful of views here and there. But even on a tiny video, she got a view from a woman who booked a call with her and booked a year-long contract with this doctor in her program for a significant amount of money. So all you need is one viewer as an entrepreneur and, of course, a way to convert them on the back end. When I started my channel, I would have quit a bunch of times, by the way. Like the first part of YouTube is hard. We talk about return on effort. Well, the return on effort is really low in the beginning, but you have to push through that part to get to where the return on effort is massive. But even though I was watching my subscribers and views, some days, those first few months getting 0 views, 0 new subscribers, very discouraging. I got my first client from YouTube 11 days after I started publishing. I only had a handful of views, but somebody saw me talking. They liked what they heard. They said, "Do you consult?" And I said, "Sure." And all of a sudden, by the end of the week, I had a consulting client. So the path with entrepreneurs is much, much easier if you're already selling your own offers. But that's kind of the two ways to look at it. The last thing I'll say about this for monetization is if you're on that entrepreneur path, yes, we want to go on. We want to teach people things. We want to give lots of free value, but you want to make sure it's very clear that you are a business who accepts money in your videos from the very beginning. And I didn't do this. It was honestly, I had a full-time job. I was like, let me start teaching this stuff on YouTube. Originally, I taught all the different social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, even Snapchat tutorials back in the day. And I didn't talk about it in a way that I had a business. So you always want to make sure so that the right people, when they see your videos, they know that you are somebody that helps people professionally, you have a business, so that they will want to reach out.
Yeah, and Jerry, as you know, I am a professional speaker, and I use YouTube sometimes to generate a lead generation to talk about the importance of hiring people with disabilities. So I'm curious to ask you about lead generation as a tool on YouTube and how to maximize it from a lead generation perspective. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
So there's a couple of things that you can do with this. One of them is going to be understanding how lead generation works on YouTube. Okay. And it's not like most of the other platforms, or it's not like a lot of other lead generation. So generally with lead generation, you tell somebody like on a podcast episode, hey, I have this free thing. Often we'll call it a lead magnet. You can go to this link and you can download it, right? Mm-hmm. The problem on YouTube is hopefully new people are finding you and they don't know, like, and trust you yet because they're brand new. So if you stop in the middle of your video to spend 30 seconds talking about this thing they should go download and telling them how great it is, they're very unlikely to do that. So instead of lead magnets, what I teach in my program and what I encourage people to do is instead you do something that I call a need magnet. It's simpler, it's smaller, and it converts much better. And the key parts of a need magnet versus a lead magnet, one, it needs to be something they need to have. The moment they hear it, they need to go, oh gosh, yes, I got to go get that right now. So for example, one of my need magnets is called the YT90 roadmap. So the YouTube in 90 minutes framework is YT90. And so I'll say, by the way, if YouTube is overwhelming to you right now and you'd like to be able to run a channel in less time, like 90 minutes a week, go to YT90roadmap.com to get started. So the second part of that is it should be able to be pitched in about 5 seconds. 5 to 8 seconds, I like to say. If you spend 20 to 30 seconds telling them about your freebie, your watch time on your videos is going to go down and YouTube will not recommend your videos as much. We don't want that, right? We want them to show our videos to as many people as possible. So that's that second part, is that you can pitch it in 5 to 8 seconds and then it can work really, really well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jerry, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this because our friends over at Wix say that 32% of marketers use YouTube as their number one source of publishing video content, and they also say that approximately 55% of marketers incorporate YouTube as a part of their main sort of broader marketing strategy, my friend. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on those findings and what it tells you about the significance of digital marketing in terms of landscape and how marketers and business people are using YouTube to sort of amplify their messages. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
I think the biggest thing with YouTube compared to some of these other platforms is how consistent it has been over the years. Like the last couple of years, as AI has infiltrated like Facebook and Instagram, at one point, Facebook was like, we're going to start putting up AI profiles and they'll comment on your content. You can talk to our AI bots. And the humans were like, nah, we're good. TikTok almost got banned here in the United States. Like there's been all of these changes and drama on these other platforms, which is exciting to talk about. But YouTube has just been this consistent, reliable, long-term content platform and lead generating platform for years and years and years. So I think that's one reason why marketers and business owners consider it more so valuable. I think that number should actually be even higher. But the second part of this is YouTube is one of the only platforms that literally has large numbers of every demographic that you want to reach. So if you want to reach 12 to 17-year-olds, they're on YouTube. If you want to reach 70 to 80-year-olds, they're on YouTube, and everybody in between. Some of the other platforms tend to lean a certain way, like Instagram leans younger than Facebook. Facebook leans a little older. TikTok tends to lean a little younger, but everybody's on YouTube. So no matter what the business is, you can find your audience there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Jerry, I want to talk to you about inclusion for people with disabilities. So, full disclosure, but I was born with spastic quadriplegia cerebral palsy, and I started this channel during the pandemic originally, Jerry, because I said there was only so much Netflix I could watch in a day, right? So I wanted to sort of get my creative juices flowing, and living with a disability, sometimes it's harder to get out and socialize. So I used my podcast as a sort of social interaction arm. And, our friends at the University of Michigan say that 40% of people that live with a disability live in social isolation. So I'm curious, how do you think YouTube is an effective tool for individuals with disabilities to broadcast their message and find their voice? My friend, what are your thoughts there?
Well, I'll say you obviously connecting with people and interviewing with people like this is a great way for social connection. I will say that YouTube is not as strong as a platform for social connection the way that some of the other ones are, just because it's more, channels go out and then some, community certainly forms around some channels. But I will say one thing I think that YouTube is great for, and YouTube wants, is more people like you representing people like you or any other group out there, because we talked about the power of emotional connection, the power of when somebody connects emotionally with the person on the screen, they feel incredible. And I think the more variety of I don't know if variety is the right word, but people with different developmental disabilities, different ages, genders. Some people say, "Oh, I'm too old to be on YouTube," or "I'm too young to be on YouTube." It's like, no, they want everybody. Everybody should be out there. Representation is important, and so that's why I think it's incredible that here we are in 2026 as we're having this conversation, and you and I can connect and speak with people all over the world from our computer, wherever we happen to be. I actually worked as a radio personality for many years before I got out and went into marketing. And back then, I was an employee. I was reliant on a radio station that wanted to hire me. They were reliant on advertisers buying ads. They were also reliant on the government giving them a license to broadcast. Like, there was all of this stuff that had to happen. And then you could also lose your job in a second. And so I'm not lost on the fact that YouTube has given me and you and other people like this a platform to get in front of people anywhere in the world from wherever you are with an internet connection and at least a phone, if not a computer. So I think it's just an incredible opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jared, I also wanted to ask you about, effective sort of strategy. We talked a lot about the 90 minutes and posting specific content, but I'm curious because, as a professional speaker, my speaking coach always tells me not to post and ghost on platforms like LinkedIn, for example, because people want to have a consistent following and they do business with people they know, like, and trust. So I'm wondering how we take the know, like, and trust philosophy for YouTube success. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Well, it starts with the fact that YouTube is video first. And I'm a big psychology geek, and there's some really fascinating psychology about video. If somebody is watching somebody on video, it mimics the same response in a brain. It's like we're sitting across the table from each other, even though we're not. And the beautiful thing about this is if somebody is watching one of my YouTube videos, we're strangers to each other, right? For the first time, we don't know each other. And if I was to walk right up to them so that I was like 2 feet apart from them and say, hey, let me show you how to grow on YouTube in 90 minutes a week, they'd be like, whoa, what are you doing in my coffee shop? Why are you here, right? It's very alarming. Mm-hmm. And there's this great psychological study that talks about these circles we have around all of us in terms of how close somebody can get before it makes us uncomfortable. So if somebody's a stranger, if they walk within 10 feet of us, our guard goes up. Like, why is this person 10 feet away from me? If someone is an acquaintance, so somebody we know, but aren't necessarily friends or family with, if they walk within 3 feet, then our guard goes up. Like, oh, what's this person doing? But if somebody is a close friend or family member, our guard doesn't go up, even if they walk within 3 feet of us, because they're coming to give us a hug or a high five or, whatever it might be. And video mimics that 3-foot radius. So as people are watching you and I have this conversation right now, and they're watching you speak and they're watching me speak, in the brain, it almost mimics a level of trust, like they're willing to let us within 3 feet of them without all of the alarm bells going off. So the fact that YouTube is video first is so much more powerful for know, like, and trust than anything else. And I think as AI content, like we're seeing it everywhere now, the more AI content that spills out there, the overall trust factor is going down. And you just can't, unless somebody's a really gifted writer, for example, you can't connect with them in the same way reading their emails or blog posts.
Yeah, absolutely. You say that most podcasts don't fail because of the content. They fail because of their, they have an outdated structure, my friend. And I'm wondering why you believe that most podcasts need to sort of refine their structure in order to be successful. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
So this goes back to something that I created a few years back, and I don't actually teach this anymore, but happy to share it here. So I mentioned that I worked in radio, and when we worked in radio, we would design our show every morning out of segments, or we called them modules, okay? And most podcasts, the way that they are designed, there's a couple of things. On the lowest effort level, it's two people that get together and they go, we should have a podcast. Okay. And they sit down and they say, all right, this week we're going to talk about, the TV show Bridgerton or whatever. And then they'll just sit down and they'll just talk about Bridgerton for an hour and a half and then hope people show up and listen. Right. And so that's sort of that lowest level, but there's no structure to that show. So that's the first problem, is there's no structure. Now, this show, for example, you invited me on the show, you did research, you looked up questions to ask, you're guiding the conversation. And when somebody reads the show notes, they're going to hear a little bit about what is going to be in the show structure-wise. So this is a big step up. But the other part of that is podcasts don't grow on their own like they once did. So it used to be that there were, so few podcasts that if you started a new podcast and it was good, Apple would start promoting it, different places like that. It would start to make its way around. But now there's so many podcasts. Podcasting does not have the built-in algorithm like YouTube does for discovery. And so it's much harder to grow a podcast. So the other part of that, where we were building the shows out of modules, as we call them, we called it modcasting. If you Google modcasting, you might be able to still find some stuff about this. But we would build the show out of these modules. And part of that was, part of the show would be designed to be pulled out, made into a short form video that then you could put on TikTok, Instagram, a YouTube short, different places like that. And it would bring people back to the podcast. So I would take clips of my podcast, put them out as short form videos. Some of them would, do okay. Others, might get 30,000 views. And then, I remember one woman, when somebody signs up for one of my paid programs, I say, hey, where did you find out about me? And one woman said, oh, I saw this Instagram reel you put out about such and such. And I remembered which one it was, and it had done really well. I was like, oh, cool. So I asked her later, I said, so you saw the reel and then you went and listened to the podcast or watched the podcast? She goes, no, I've never heard your podcast. I saw the reel, I looked you up, and then I joined your email list and signed up for the program. And so this process of making sure that you have a discovery system built in. And so what we were teaching was take chunks of your show that will bring new people to your show. Without that, podcasts don't grow because there's no built-in strong growth system for podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely. John, I've got 3 questions left for you, and I want to return to the idea of working less and managing time better, and the idea of being impactful. So I'm curious, what does it mean to you to be impactful as an entrepreneur, and in turn, how does that help you work less, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
Oh, I don't know if being impactful helps you work less. It may not. It could, but I'm a big fan of, sometimes when I work with some of my clients on their businesses, I'm a big fan of trying to figure out what's your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? And it's okay if it's just to make money, but a lot of times we have another why that's deeper than that. And your why doesn't have to be public. It doesn't have to be part of your marketing. Sometimes it is, and that's totally fine. So when I first started my business, I was working with a coach at the time, and we worked on this, trying to come up with my why. And I said, I was working full time at an agency still then, and I wanted to have this online business with location freedom. And we kept digging down, and my why ultimately turned out to be because I want to be able to run my business from anywhere in the world. And part of that was I was born in Tokyo. I wanted to be able to take my kids back for a long trip to Japan, to where I was born, to go back. And so we did that a few years ago. Then I came up with a new why after that. But when you have a why, it does 2 things. One, it helps keep you focused on things that help you achieve that why. So that's where I think it can give you more time freedom or more efficiency, because if you don't have a why, then you're much more tempted by shiny objects. You have no filter. So somebody listens to this episode and they're like, oh, I heard him mention podcasts and modcasting and shorts and YouTube, and I'm going to go start all of them next week. So that's the type of thing where I think, having that impact, like if you have an impact that you want to make either on your own life or externally, it can be a strong filter for keeping you focused on the right things. Now, it can also make you work more because you're so driven to make that impact. So that's where sometimes it could backfire, but it can work both ways.
Yeah, and Jerry, I also want to talk about leveraging resources as an entrepreneur, because you say that's one of the main ways that we can elevate our impact. And I always say, when you set goals, it's important to ask yourself, what are your resources? What's your time frame, and what steps do you have to take to get the resources you need, my friend? So I'm curious on your perspective on leveraging resources to maximize entrepreneurial potential. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Well, one thing to keep in mind is there is literally no shortage of information anymore. Any of us can learn almost anything from ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, like in an instant. If we couldn't learn it from Google before, there's just so much information out there. So one of the things that I always like to remind myself, if I find myself having imposter syndrome, keeping it, sneaking in, and I see somebody else and I'm like, oh, look how well they're doing. I'm doing so badly and I shouldn't be here or whatever. Like it comes in for all of us sometimes. And I like to remind myself, when you see somebody else like that, they're not better than any of us. They simply know something that I don't know. They're doing something that I'm not doing, or they believe something that I don't believe yet. And all of those can be changed. And so I encourage people to look at everything you take on in this way. When you start something, or you want to start something, either decide it's important or decide it's not. If it's important, give it everything that it needs, whether that's buying resources, finding resources, blocking out time on your calendar to work on it, whatever it is. If it's not important, let it go and don't think about it again. So same thing with YouTube. When I started the YouTube channel, I was like, yeah, let's see how this works. But I wasn't like, yeah, I'll throw up a few videos and see what happens. I said, I'm going to publish one video every week for a year, and I am going to then see what happens. And had I not done that, I would have quit a few times, but I committed to a year. But when it started off, I wasn't making any money there. I didn't have a bunch of money. There was no, I didn't have money to invest. I remember the first time I invested in email software, it was like $29 a month, and going, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm spending this money, a totally different mindset now. But at that time, I said, okay, what do I need to make this successful? Well, there were tons of free tutorials on YouTube. There was a guy that I kind of knew that had been on YouTube a couple of years. He wasn't wildly successful, but he'd been at it. So I went out to lunch with him. Now we have these AI tools. We have so much content. There's so many places that you can go and learn. And so I guess my main takeaway from this for you with resources is if it's important, find the resources and get them however you can that are going to help you. And if it's not important, then let it go and find something else to focus on.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Jared, my final question is how I end all of my podcasts, because I believe it's important to build legacy and reflect on how we want our legacies to be defined. So I'm curious, how do you want your personal and professional legacy to be defined when it's all said and done, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I'm very uncomfortable with the idea of death, so I'm already uncomfortable with this question, but I'll answer it anyway. We were talking about our why, and my original why was I wanted to be able to work from anywhere so I could take my kids to Japan where I was born. But my why now is I think that entrepreneurs are changing the world. It's the only area where somebody can have an idea that solves a problem for somebody else, and they can go out there and they can use platforms like YouTube or podcasting to get in front of those people, and they can help those people solve that problem. And so what I would love to be remembered for, especially with my business, in addition to obviously being a great husband and father and all of that, is that I helped somebody who had a dream, who could solve a problem for somebody else, get in front of that other person and help them solve that problem. Because the ripple effect of that is massive, right? Because I help somebody get out there and solve somebody else's problem, and then that person has their problem solved, and then maybe they can pass that on to somebody else. And so that's really where I think, on an individual levels, government is doing what government does around the world right now, but individuals and especially entrepreneurs that are mostly going out there to solve problems for people are, I think, having the biggest impact. And I want to help them do that before they burn out. Hence, YouTube in 90 minutes.
Absolutely. And my friend, follow, tell me if people want to get connected with you, what's the best way they can do that?
You can search for my name on YouTube, Jerry Potter. And if you want to learn more about YouTube in 90 minutes, you can go to yt90roadmap.com. It goes deeper into how to run a channel in 90 minutes a week, but it also helps you figure out whether it's worth your time or not, because there are some people that it'll work really well and some people that it won't. So it's a free download. They can just go to yt90roadmap.com.
Absolutely. Well, my friend, as someone who posts YouTube videos every week, my friend, I know what kind of a labor of love it is and the amount of consistency needed to be effective. And I really want to thank you for providing people with a platform to maximize the platform of YouTube, because I think it's changing the world of entrepreneurship. So I want to thank you for your efforts in that regard and for joining me this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
Hey, my pleasure, Kevin. Great to talk to you. Thank you for having me.